She's always worried me.
Sammy's like, can you take me to Dollar General tomorrow? I'm like, you probably better go today.
Yeah.
Well, it's already there.
Hopefully nobody's
Yeah.
switched though. The farmers won't mind though.
Then I'm like, I'm not coming out of
The
house.
pheasants that you're
It's
getting,
like that.
do
I'm not
they
coming
have
out of
corn
house
in them? Are
tomorrow.
they empty?
Hey, Shane,
Yeah.
on the AWAS one, that is, it goes up a little bit, but overall the contract is less than original, right?
Overall, it's like
Krista's,
5,060 something, I think. Yeah. Less.
Get in one day. That's 8 point.
I'm good. How are you? Stacy?
I can't remember what it is. She wants to know the new guy's name. I stopped to see him one day, but I forgot his name already.
Oh,
I'm not.
yeah.
For me, it is real easy.
Time does your phone say?
Says it's in my pocket.
27.
Mine says, yeah, 27.
You want to sit here while you wait? I'll stand.
I'm enjoying the
I
heat.
forget, is Tom not gonna be here tonight? I think he may have,
Tom said he said he was
Okay.
coming because I offered to pick him up. He said,
no, sorry, that was the last meeting, I forgot.
Yeah.
There he is.
Finally, he slid in.
Did you and Jerry trade places or
I was like,
what?
what do you think you are, Jerry? I know I'm late. You get here and you still get razzed.
I know, I was here, for me, quite early.
I took
Because I didn't work today.
Oh, that's what.
I took
It's
that
easier to
last.
get away.
That explains the smiling too.
Yeah.
He's not stressed out flying in here at the last one.
Took that last phone call. I never should have.
See, I just need to take all my days off work.
Turn my
So
phone
I
off.
can-
Somebody called you at the last minute.
Strap on.
Yeah.
And I could have.
Say, we just put in every other week for
No.
the next 4 years. And
No.
we'll be
Who's that coming?
good. Your bosses might go,
Hey,
what?
Ron,
Bills.
is this the last one today?
That's why he's smiling.
That's why he's
oh,
smiling.
God.
Did you pick up the budget earlier?
Yeah.
You didn't even answer that. I don't know how to take that.
That's,
Earlier,
Just
meaning.
I put lotion on.
well,
Like
it was,
2
it
weeks
was
ago?
available last week.
I need lotion.
My engine,
That's what I needed, was about 3 weeks on it.
You got a
Oh,
week.
man.
That's what you got. It's not much different than what it was in September.
I don't know. if they
It just has the full narrative.
It works out.
Yeah.
On the hallway, if anyone's watching the budget percentage.
Tyler, we all like to welcome you.
Last one here, and he wants to be the first one up.
Oh, I don't know. Well, he's not even on the agenda. though.
Oh, here we go, guys. I'd like to call the regular city council meeting for December 12th. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
we have any changes to the agenda?
We don't have any changes to the agenda, Mayor.
Make a motion to approve as written.
Second.
First and second, any other discussion on that? Roll call, please. Oh, we don't have to. You know, the one time I did that. So, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. So, we can go right into the
Public hearing, you bet.
Truth in Lending public hearing.
Yep.
Anybody here would like to talk about the tax levy?
So can you
Would you like-
open up, well, I was going to say, can you open up the public hearing first?
No, I could. I could do that.
Just for the record?
I'd like to open up the public meeting for the
Thank you, Mayor.
the final
I
tax
appreciate
levy
it.
for
I appreciate it.
2023.
And you could take public comment first, or you could have us kind of go through the budget first before we do public comment. I suppose it depends on if the public's here to comment on it and which way they want to go.
Do you want to go through the whole budget, or would you like to comment first so you don't have to sit through the whole budget?
Well, I'd like to comment, although I am curious about the whole budget.
Okay, which way would you like to go?
I guess my comment coming first would be fine. Am I the
Alright.
only member of the public?
Hop up to the podium then, please.
Lord in heaven. Yes, I wonder
You're
what-
speaking on behalf of all.
I am speaking on behalf of all. Well,
Give me your name and address.
well, my name is David Schoenhardt. I live at 502 Sunrise.
What, 502 what?
Sunrise.
Okay.
And I guess my comment is just, I moved here about 2 years ago, Labor Day. And when I moved up to Tracy, with a house of about the same value, my taxes doubled. So the town I was in Northwest Iowa, my taxes were half. And it's not like we were lacking in amenities. You know, we had paved streets, we had good law enforcement, we had a well-equipped fire department, a library, all that stuff that makes living in a city livable. But since then, not only did I start with my taxes double where they were, there have been 2 immense increases since. And I don't know if you guys have thought about this or not, but really tax policy is the way that cities or governments generally communicate to the public. And the message coming loud and clear from the tax policy that's been coming through has been, we don't want you to live here. And if you live here, we really don't want you to improve your house, because we're going to take our pound of flesh if you do. So from a philosophical perspective, I'm just left wondering, what justification can there be for increasing? I mean, is it because of poor management in past councils? Is it, and we're trying to correct for that? Is it because of decisions that are being made right now? It's hard for me to comprehend that. And if it comes to projects, I guess I really struggle to find the value in projects if they are going to cost more, if they don't also dramatically improve the lives or the value of the people who already live here. And yeah, so that's pretty much all I have to say on the subject. It's really hard for me to comprehend where or how this is all coming together and what benefit it creates. So, thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That's a great segue, Mayor.
Hopefully some answers will be answered
In the-
Yeah,
with the budget presentation.
I believe that's going to be the case, yeah, is that you did hit the nail on the head when you said that a substantial amount of what you're seeing as far as increase in taxes has been the result of past administrations kicking a can down the street for years upon years upon years, and now having to do major street work in town through the last few years, that exponential cost as a result of waiting that longest. So we're going to be looking at, most of our budget is paying for those. And so I'm not sure where you were before as far as what projects they had, how streets were. Maybe they had taken care of all those through the years, but I feel your pain. I'm here too.
Well, and I'm not justifying it by no means, but didn't the values of our property go up?
Yeah, there's a couple of points that need to be made, I think, relative to this specific question, and then we can talk about the specifics of our budget. You know, one is that we don't actually control all of the taxes. They're a combination of things. They're a combination of the school, the county, and the city. In addition to that, it's also based on assessed valuation for a few. So if your home went up substantially in value, especially compared to other homes in the city of Tracy, you would be paying a larger portion of taxes than you previously did. And given where the gentleman lives in terms of the address, you know, that neighborhood generally when you may remember from the last Board of Equalization meeting we had back in April, what the assessor was telling us is that there were certain classes of homes in areas of the city that went up substantially in terms of the property values. And some of those newer homes did. Some of the older neighborhoods, not as much. And Sunrise Drive would be an example of some of those areas. And so if your value of your home goes up, your taxes are going to go up too. So a lot of that's not necessarily the city of Tracy, but I'd have to look at the gentleman's tax bill to really, over the last few years, to really answer that question. But I'd be happy to meet with you and kind of go over it with you if you'd like. Just kind of walk through, you know, where all is going and what is coming through. But I think in general, I think that the question of what am I getting for my money is a good one, right? Because that's really what the taxpayers really care about at the end of the day. And as the council member has already indicated, and what you as a council already know, and I think much of the public knows, you know, we borrowed $21.4 million in 2019. And some of that debt service is starting to come due this next year in 2023. And more will come online in 2024. And so when you borrow money, because you need to improve the infrastructure, because the MPCA, the Minnesota Public Pollution Control Agency, tells you have to get new ponds and you have infrastructure that's over 100 years old, you know, that money has to come from somewhere. It's either that or we don't build any more homes and we just kind of, you know, start to, you know, have deteriorating water and sewer systems. We can't do that. The community cannot survive that. So the decision I think was made in 2019 was the right decision. Not everybody sitting here was part of that decision, but I think everybody understands that that was a good decision. But it means it's going to cost something. But I think there's some value in that, and it's basically about, you know, survival of the town. You know, it's really kind of that basic. But I'd be happy to go into my presentation on the full budget now, Mayor, if you're ready.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Mayor and Council. This is an interesting budget to do because, and I'm pretty proud of it because in a lot of ways it was a tough budget to do because of some of the things that are starting to come online in 2023. I do want to introduce, you all know, Tyler Twistle, our new finance director. He helped me edit the budget a little bit at the end and found some typos and grammatical things that I cleaned up a little bit. And it would have been nice to have him here earlier, but I think he's going to be a great asset to the community and the city. So the 2023 budget, you know, it's a function of your priorities. I mean, what we try to do when we build a budget is we ask you, you know, what are your goals and objectives? You know, what's important to you as a city council? What's important to the city? And we try to, as much as possible, align those goals with the budget. And so the budget is a tool to manage resources and prioritize projects for the people that we serve. We can't do everything, but we're going to try to do the most important things. And we expend money kind of in this priority. I mean, one, we already talked about debt a little bit, and I'm going to talk about that some in the presentation. You know, we had to pay our it's just like your household bills. You know, I mean, if you've got your mortgage, you got to pay that first. Then you buy your groceries, and that's your kind of operating costs. your utilities, and things like gasoline and things like that. We have the same kinds of things we have to buy in the city too. And in the end, if you want to buy a new car, or maybe you need some new furniture, or maybe you need a new house, I mean, that's your capital. And the city kind of prioritizes things in the same way that people do in their household budgets. And that's kind of the prioritization that we do here too. Capital projects, those last ones, the things that we're trying to do to improve the community are going to be fiscally constrained. They're going to reflect your priorities. We're going to do things that you say are important. 2023 was interesting. There's some challenges and opportunities in 2023. The first challenge, our debt payments are going to start to peak. So there's a couple things happening. The 2019 B bonds, we have to start paying on the principal now. That's the general obligation debt, sometimes referred to as the ineligibles bond. That was $13 million that was borrowed in 2019. We have to start paying on that starting in 2023. The rest of that, which is going to be a long-term loan from rural development, which is $8.4 million, we'll start paying on those payments in 2024. And so, the challenge is that 23, 24, and 25 are going to be our most difficult years. Not impossible. We can still continue to do the things that we need to do, but it just means that we're not going to have a lot of extra, I guess you could say, during that time frame. That's our first challenge, is those debt payments. The second challenge is, how do we continue to maintain service levels at a time when our costs are rising? Now, the inflation rate is coming down some, but it's still going up. Our materials costs are higher, just like, your grocery bills are higher, ours are higher too. Energy costs, gasoline, all those kinds of things. And at the same time, we have these significant capital needs, but we don't have a bunch of new revenues to cover them. Pretty much our revenue is going to be covering the debt payments and just kind of maintaining our services to citizens. And so those are our top two priorities, but we still have all these other capital needs. So, how the heck do we do all these things at the same time and try to keep things reasonable? Well, we've got some opportunities in 2023. The first one is that we sold O'Brien Court for $1.2 million. Two things are going to come out of that. Some of that money we can program into the capital improvement projects. And so that's what the budget contemplates. Some of that money is also going to be used to pay off the debt at Orchard Lane. Debt is a big deal in the city right now, and if we can pay off some of that debt, which incidentally the charter requires us to pay off that debt with that money, so it's something we didn't have a lot of choice in the matter of, but it's still a good thing because it means that debt can be paid off. The 2016 B bonds were paid off in 2022. And anytime you pay off a bond, they always make you keep a little bit of money, cash in reserve. It's just a way that they manage their risks, so that make you keep some cash in reserve, so that if you miss a payment, then they can take it from that reserve or something. And so there's a little bit of reserve money left over after we paid off that bond. That's just cash that's sitting there. And so we think that's an opportunity to use that. And the last one is the infrastructure bill that was passed over the summer in Congress. The FAA has told us that we can get about $500,000 for the airport out of that bill as a direct allocation to us, which is not something we can use anywhere but the airport. But the nice thing is that we need new airport hangars anyway, and so it's a good place to put that money. So we have some challenges, but we have some sources of funds that we can go to, for the money that we need for some of these projects. So what does the budget look like in terms of by the numbers? So total expenditures in 2023 in the budget are $15.7 million and revenues of about $13 million. The difference is money that we're essentially bonded for already in 2019 that we're spending on the Phase 3 infrastructure street projects. We recognized that revenue in 2019 when we received it, and so we're essentially just spending that money down. So it's not really a deficit, it's just the money that we got years ago, and now we're just spending it down. Capital projects of $8.3 million. The vast majority of that is, again, this infrastructure project. We're going to wrap up a lot of that project next year. It's supposed to be done in August. And so a good portion of the money that's left is going to be spent, just completing that project. The budget includes a preliminary property tax levy of $1.4 million. That's a 7% increase over 2022. That's the same increase you approved last year. Our local government aid went up a whopping $7,000 this year. So this is money that we get from the state, $979,547. There's been some talk about changing that formula and increasing it, and that might happen this year because of some changes in the state legislature, but we won't plan for it, and if it happens, that would be great. A few years ago, you passed some actions saying we need to increase water and sewer fees, and in order to pay, this is partially what's paying for the debt for our $21 million in infrastructure projects. That's the money we borrowed. The projects are actually more than that because of grants. And so this is according to that schedule that and the fee study that we did 2 years ago. There's something new, and that is that in our new Excel franchise agreement, that includes franchise fees for Excel Energy, and we already have that with the cable franchises. We just didn't have it with Excel, and so that's new. So let's talk about debt. This is our debt curve. You can see what it was. This is like a 10-year debt service. So 2022, our debt was $1.3 million. We're going up $309,000 this year, mostly because of that 2019 B bonds. So you can see how it's going from 1.354 to 1.663, and then kind of stays, at that level for the next 3 years, and then comes down again in 2025, when I think it's the 2015 bonds are paid off, and then again in 2029 when another set of bonds get paid off. And so we'll be in much better shape in a few years, but for the next few years, the next 3 years, this is when our debt payments are going to peak. And if you looked at this earlier, like if you were looking in 2016, 2017, our debt service at that time was $600,000-$700,000 a year, and so it's a substantial increase over what it used to be. About $1.2 million more than what it used to be just a few years ago. So one of the things that we look at is the 2023 general fund. This is where your local property taxes go. This is where local government aid goes. That pays for most of the general fund. This is kind of where most of your general services come from. Your police, your fire, library, operations for public works. This is where your bread and butter is, right here. 2022 is generally on track. Our miscellaneous revenue is down a little bit. That mainly has to do with interest earnings being down. Now they're coming up again now, and that's going to help us next year. But most of the stuff we had was in much lower interest rates, earlier in the year. We are forecasting lower services and charges in 2023. That's reduced street maintenance and some other expenses. In general, what I would suggest to you is that we've been tightening our belt. You might know we eliminated 3 full-time positions last year. So I think that's one of the things that people want to know. It's like, oh, geez, guys, you are raising the tax levy, yes. Why? Well, don't just be a bloated government and spend haphazardly. We're pretty particular about how we spend our money, and we've tightened our belt quite a bit. And so we're going to do our part too. We're not just asking the citizens to do it all. So ultimately, we're forecasting a balanced budget, and roughly a balanced budget the last couple of years as well. In these numbers, and so we're right on target for where we need to be. So You might ask the same, what's the same in 2023 than it is today? And what's changed? So staffing levels are going to remain the same in 2023 from where they are today. Service levels are going to generally stay the same. We're going to continue the senior programming at the Eagles. We're going to continue honor the funding requests from Tracy Ambulance, continue our charitable contributions. At one point we had talked about, well, geez, are these opportunities to reduce that? And we found a way not to have to do that. I know that was a really painful discussion to have, and so this includes all of those items. The Phase 3 infrastructure projects that you know about, they're going to continue and they're going to be complete in August. We're going to continue other popular community programs like the Movies in the Park and things like that. So what's new in 2023? So you might remember that Val and Jeff and I and some other folks in the community did a kind of a community artists in residence evaluation. We've got $5,000 in the budget next year. We're going to try to turn that into a grant from the Southwest Minnesota Arts Council to see if we can bring somebody in here to help us with a community art project of some kind, but we don't know what that looks like yet. We're going to have some money in there next year for the comprehensive plan implementation. You haven't seen the comprehensive plan yet. The Planning Commission has, but it has some recommendations in it. And some of these items are related to those recommendations. So we talked to the Southwest Minnesota Housing Partnership on doing a housing study for some housing downtown, and we're going to look at some options because we've got to figure out how to expand housing in town. It's a big challenge for us in general. The other thing is really looking at the industrial park, kind of doing a full master plan for where should the lots be out there, what should we do with that. The county has offered up some money for some of their ARPA money, potentially $250,000, and so we want to be able to kind of flesh out a plan a little bit for what we might use that money for. We're thinking that we want to target some of that money towards expansion of some of the utilities at the industrial park so that we have some buildable lots out there. The challenge out there is that there's all kinds of land, but there's no infrastructure. And so if we can get some of the infrastructure out there, we think we're in a better position to lure some industrial development. We're going to continue with our effort at City Hall and the VMC. We submitted on December 1st, we submitted a request to put this building on the National Historic Register. That takes 12 to 16 months, I'm told. Federal government works slowly. So it's going to be a little while before we know. But one of the steps that we have to do is kind of a conditions assessment of this building to determine, before we can request funding from the Minnesota Historical Society for this building for tuck pointing and HVAC and all this other stuff, we have to do a conditions assessment on the building itself. What needs to be repaired? What needs to be maintained? Things like that. And that's what this is going to be. And we're going to apply for a grant for this as well for next year. We're going to look at, Jeff has been doing a good job at looking at some other things. We've had some expanded activities at the VMC already. Jan Arvisu, our council member, has been leading our bone builders here, since March or April of earlier this year, and I think that's gone really, really well. We're now doing some adult activities, some pickleball and volleyball at night, and so now we're thinking, okay, well, what else can we do? And so there's a little bit of money in there to work with the YMCA in Marshall. The person, Heather Radke, actually, who is in Marshall at the YMCA, lives in Tracy. And so Jeff talked to her, and we're working with them on creating kind of some new, fitness programs for adults to augment, the bone builders that we're already doing in the VMC during the day. So we're going to try that starting in about February. So this kind of all goes with, and we've heard it from all of you, geez, can't we use the VMC for more? It's this big, nice facility. Can we use it for more? And so this is what we're trying to do. And we'll see how people respond to that. But that's kind of exciting. So what else are we doing in 2023 in terms of capital projects? Well, there's $6.9 million to complete the project for the streets. That's the pond decommissioning. that's almost complete at this point. We've got a little bit of grading to do and some seeding and stuff like that out there at the site, but it's pretty close to being done and will be done by the spring. Center Street reconstruction. Phase 3A2, we've got the final lift and anything related to that. That'll be done in the spring. And hopefully we'll have some money left over to reinstitute a project that was planned for originally, but we moved out in order to do Center Street and the ponds, which is some lining of some sewer pipes. And this would all be grant funded if we have enough money left at the end. And we'll just have to see, where we're at. We're still kind of working through kind of the financial figures, and so it's not ready for the budget, but there'll probably be a budget amendment at some point next year to do that. Because we want to use up all the grant funds that we have. In addition to that, there's another $1.6 million in projects. The top projects that you have ranked for us is the pool liners is number one. About $250,000, or a good chunk of that, most of that is coming from the 2016 B bonds, the extra money that we have left over after we paid those off. As we told you, I think in the budget meeting, it makes a lot of sense because that was actually the bond that paid for the pool in the first place. So we literally just paid off the pool, and now we're going to take a little bit of that extra money and put it back into the pool to replace these 20-year-old liners that are starting to fail and leak and cost us increased maintenance over time. Building some airport hangars, it's about $500,000, or $1 million, excuse me. Half of that, a good chunk of that is grant funded. About 3/4 of it is grant funded, actually. About $500,000 from the federal government for that BIL money that I told you about earlier, that infrastructure bill. About another $250,000 of it is from the state. And the rest of it will be some portions of our monies. And so that's a pretty good deal because it's going to probably be about 75% grant funded. Other projects that we have on tap, and all this is money that is coming from, we're not taxing for any of this. This is all money that is coming from that we have saved. The SCADA upgrades, that's a continuing project that's in design right now, and it's not going to be done until next year, but this is being funded by COVID ARPA money. Turnout gear for the fire department, some equipment for public works, and a little bit of money for some downtown streetscape to replace trash cans and put some benches and some other kind of nice things down there. And then another $70,000 for ongoing street maintenance, and that's going to come out of the excess fund balance from the sewer fund. So all of this money that's being spent on this line item, in fact, every single stitch of capital money that we're spending is coming from essentially excess savings that we don't need. Which is this. This is essentially your sources of funds. 2016 B bonds, some money from the sale of O'Brien Court, some money from sewer fund balance, very small amount of money in a hangar loan at 0% interest. We have a little bit of money in the capital fund as fund balance, and the remainder is grants. So, what should everyone know about this? And I don't just mean, you as a council, but everyone in the public. 2023 is a challenging year because this is our largest debt load ever. It's our largest debt payments we've ever had in the next 3 years, starting in 2023. Plus, this is also our largest investment in capital infrastructure in the city ever in any one year. So we've got more debt and more capital projects happening at the same time. Well, how the heck do you do that? While at the same time maintaining citizen services, or even in some cases at increased levels, with only a 7% increase in the tax levy. It's actually kind of a good bargain if you think about it. Now, from my perspective, I think the taxpayers are getting a good value for the money. One of the things I don't think that people don't even realize is that only 11% of our revenue in the city actually comes For 2023, only 11% of our revenue comes from local sources. The rest of it is other revenues. So people talk about the tax levy a lot, but it's actually a really small portion of our budget. We get a lot of money from the state. We get a lot of money in grants. Almost 40% of our, actually almost half of our budget next year is grant funded. And so we're really maximizing and trying to stretch as far as we possibly can every single dollar. So if I'm a taxpayer out there, yes. Is it a 7% increase in the tax levy? Yes, it is. But there are good reasons for that. Extremely specific and robust capital improvement plan. Increased debt payments that we have to handle. And we're doing a lot of the heavy lifting actually from sources that are outside the city. And so, with that, we think we put together a pretty decent set of numbers in a budget. I'd be happy to answer any questions that the council might have about anything that's in there or entertain any feedback at all.
So I have one question. I had somebody ask me if they could rent like the VMC for Christmas.
You can, yes.
And then they wondered like if they could have somebody cater in the food and then have like boxcar liquor serve them liquor there.
No, we can't have boxcar liquor serve them liquor. I'm not even sure that they could. I don't think they can bring their own even.
Well,
They could bring
get
their-
a temporary
We could.
liquor license.
I think they've got a couple of options on that. One is that they could certainly bring their own. You'd have to give them permission to do that, per your policy.
Didn't we just add that this last year?
We did, yeah. But you'd have to give them permission to do
I
that.
want to say it's like
There's a license.
$25.
Yeah, yeah. And then the
It's
question,
not outrageous amount.
right. So when we'd have to do a temporary license of some kind,
Which would involve a bond.
which would involve a bond, and it would take a council action, and we're not prepared for that tonight. We don't have another council meeting before Christmas. I think it's possible to do it, but with the liquor, or certainly without the liquor, but with liquor it's possible, but it would have taken a little bit more planning.
Do we have to do all that? I thought we added in a fee, so
Well,
like
there's-
if somebody wanted to have
If they bring
beer
in-
at volleyball or something, or at the park.
Yeah, that's correct, but we're talking about two different things. There's that, and then could Boxcar Liquors bring
Oh.
some in, and that's a different thing altogether.
Yeah, that's going to be a lot more.
Yeah, I don't think we could do either one of them at this late date, honestly, Mayor, just because that would have required council action, and we don't have that on the agenda tonight, and we don't have all of the requisite requests and permits and fees paid and all that stuff at this point. I think it's too late for
And
this
if they
year.
brought their own, could they do it?
No, because that would require a permit from you too. Both of them would require a permit from you, just a different kind of permit. They could do it, they just can't drink alcohol.
So if they brought their own, not at Christmas time, but if anybody wanted to rent it anytime, if they
Yes.
brought their own, we just need to give, you don't need a bond for that.
There's a permit for that, and that has to be approved by you as a city council. Yeah.
So are these the same regulations that you have at the swimming pool for
Yes.
Aloha?
Yes. Yeah, it would be. So I think it's, like I said, theoretically feasible, but I think we're too late at this point.
For Christmas.
Yes, yes.
Okay, so why, if there's I know we're kind of getting off the budget.
Yeah, we're a little off the budget, but that's all
Well,
right.
it is about the budget, it's renting out the VMC.
Why for a permit, if we have it set, why would we have to have a council motion when people do a building permit? That doesn't all have to come through us. Why?
Because the
It's a
action,
charge.
when we changed the ordinance, it required council action in order to give the permit in this case.
There's some liability there.
So you don't need to do a building permit because that's not required in the code. It's required in the code specifically for you as a council to act on this item. We wrote it up that way because we know there's some controversy associated with it, and we wanted it to be public, and everybody wanted to make sure that they could weigh in on it. So that's why.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
On the budget?
Preferably the budget, yeah. But I'll answer any question you want.
At one time, we had talked about getting the information out there for people to see that if their house was valued at this much, and if, with our tax levy going up, this is what their tax would increase for their house. So they could see that,
Portion Tracy.
yeah, that just this portion is coming to the city. The other portion's going to the school, to the county, so that, I think that even though we did the education last year, I think it's an education we need to do every year because it affects everybody.
You know what, that's a good point though, because when your taxes went up, did you take into consideration how much, because the levy passed for the school?
Well, I am aware of that, and I did look into those aspects. And,
I think that's an analysis. We did that, I think, last year, you know, and you're right. We should have probably done that again. It's not too late,
I was just
obviously.
going to say, I don't think it's ever too late to
No.
educate because
Yep.
it might just help people have better feelings or understanding.
Yep.
Dave?
just real quick.
He needs to. You need to come up.
Yeah,
You got another
yeah.
comment. Yeah.
Oh, wow. So to respond to your question, yes, I was aware that, you know, there's the county portion and there's the school portion and then there's this portion. I think it is worth noting, though, that the school portion went up because of a levy that was voted on. And whether or not I voted for the levy or agreed with the levy or anything else like that, that went through that process. The county and the city increases, however, that doesn't go through a direct vote process. So basically it leaves my only option as coming here and yelling at you. And then reminding you that there are greater implications to these policies. And yeah, these projects, they all look nice. But when you talk about the value of the property having gone up, that's not actually money in the pocket. That's all theoretical. And there's something, I understand I'm spitting in the wind here, but there's something grossly unethical about about basing tax on theoretical value rather than actual cash basis accounting.
I'm not sure what you're talking about. Theoretical, I'm not sure what you mean.
Basically saying that the market says my house is worth this, even though I paid this amount for it.
Let me comment on that.
Yeah, that's not theoretical.
Let me comment on that. The city doesn't set those values. The county assessor does.
I recognize that.
So
that's
you'll have
true.
to have a conversation with him.
I don't think you would sell your house for your tax value, would you?
Usually they're pretty close, in my experience.
I think in the past they may have been, not with the way things have happened.
I'm also not looking.
Confused. I'm
also
surprised.
not looking to sell my house.
But
So,
it's
but
not-
I can't very well opt out of paying the tax.
No, and none of us can. And we're all kind of in that same situation where we've seen tremendous increase, but not the full increase. So your tax value has actually gone a little bit behind what the true, that's why I'm saying it's not theoretical at all.
Well,
It's actually based on some pretty concrete numbers, which you can contest on your house at any point in time too. That's why we have an opportunity for individuals to come in and say, why is my tax this amount?
well, it's not any time. There are set specific times that people who work often aren't able to do it, aren't able to meet at those times. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. I was just responding to the question. So anyway,
Good
Thank
question.
you.
Thank you. Any other questions anybody have about the budget?
I have several, and
Go for it.
well, but that's my concern, is that I really feel like, and I don't know if anybody else feels this way, but I really feel like we're just slammed up against a deadline, and we get to look at this and make a decision tonight,
Well,
when we've had 3 or 4 months. And I understand there's been some changes in individuals, who would work on this, but frankly, I just don't feel comfortable being presented with this when we have no more council meetings the rest of the year. And I would at least say, I don't want to see this happen next year, because we're facing the same thing. Next year, our 2 council meetings are the 11th, and the second would be the 25th, which we can't meet.
There's always only
Let me-
one in
let-
December.
So, as far
But I
as I'm
think you're-
concerned,
Let me-
can I finish? I would like to see this November 13th next year. I don't want to have this, where I have to look at this and read through, and I have a ton of questions, but no time to really ask them.
But I think that's one of the downfalls, that you were appointed midstream, because I think if you remember, that was one of my concerns.
I don't think
was-
it has anything to do with my ability
Not to
figure this
understand,
out,
but you weren't
to ask the
involved. Let me
questions.
finish now, please. But you weren't involved in it. The rest of us were involved with it from back a lot further, where we did go through a lot of this stuff. This is not new information for us. So I guess the feeling you're having was exactly one of my concerns for anybody, not just you, because it's not a knowledge thing. It was the timing of it.
And so you're comfortable with everything that you've seen in here with no questions?
Yes, I am, because I think we've gone through it and have asked the questions and discussed it. We've had our work sessions and everything.
Okay.
I guess I am
Then-
comfortable
Then I
with
feel
it.
much more comfortable if you guys have looked at this and you feel comfortable with it, then, because for the most part, I'm gonna have to go on your judgment.
We started in June, essentially.
There's a couple of comments. I mean, the first one is that I do understand how you feel, council member. I sat on a council for 9 years once upon a time, and I remember the first budget that I ever, it was in unusual circumstances because we were elected in November, just like you are here, but we actually took office by the end of November rather than in January. And so the end of November, and all of a sudden they were asking the new council to adopt this budget literally in the first meeting that I had as a council member. And I remember, this is in 2001, but I remember feeling very uncomfortable at that particular moment because I had no benefit whatsoever of seeing any previous meetings or information or budget workshops or whatever it is that the council was doing. And I remember the mayor telling me at the time, I'm not sure I 100% agree with him, but I went with it. He's like, I mean, yes, I understand how you feel about it. I get that, but a lot of people, we worked on this before. And so at some point you just kind of have to say, okay, well, does this make sense? Can I trust, my colleagues, I guess you could say. So I understand how you feel. I've been there before. I completely understand. And I think that's a legitimate concern. The second thing I would say is that this budget, as you're seeing here, is a extraordinarily more robust budget than last year, which was better than the year before, which was better than the year before that. So the product that you're seeing here is a lot more robust and extensive than we have done in the past. And that's one of the reasons why it took a little bit, longer in this particular case. If I had, last year we presented the entire budget narrative at the end of September, which is what I would have preferred to do this year as well. But when your finance director's last day is September 16th, you don't really have time to put all that together, before the end of September, which is what I said in the last meeting. So yes, would I have liked to have done it? I did it last year. I'd seen no reason why I wouldn't do it next year. This is, I think, a pretty good product. I really do. And it's a culmination of a lot of work.
So are you saying next year, hopefully, we would get the information?
Well, that's what I did
versus-
last year,
Yeah.
and so I would anticipate we do that this coming year, unless there's some kind of crazy thing that happens again.
Well, and I guess I'm not saying we have to by September, but like the November 13th that Tom suggested, if we try to have the.
No, I'll have it in September. last year I had this entire product for you in September at the preliminary budget. And that's how I would normally like to operate, at that particular, it has to have it at that particular time. And it was mostly done by that point, but this entire narrative portion was not done. And so rather than giving you something that was incomplete, I just decided in September to give you just the numbers, and that was it. So the numbers themselves are very similar to what you saw in September. The only thing that this budget adds that we didn't have is kind of the more robust analysis of our debt structure and all of our policies and income statements for all of our funds and all of that kind of stuff. But the line items are pretty close to what you saw in September, within $50,000. So it's pretty close.
Is there a few questions you want to answer, Tom?
No.
You- Okay, I think we can go on.
Okay. So there's 3 items on the agenda for this, and you'll need to close the public hearing before you do them. Do you want to close the public hearing?
So we will close the public hearing.
There's 3 items on here. The first item is adopting the tax levy for the 2023 fiscal year, which is that $1.4 million that I had indicated previously.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2022-103 to adopt the final tax levy for the 2023 fiscal year.
Seconded.
First and second, any other further discussion for that?
So, just so I got this right, the tax levy can't go up, but if, say, we had a windfall or whatever, it could go down?
That was the case for the preliminary budget, but
Okay.
this is what we're going to collect next year in tax, less any non-payment of tax. There's always some delinquent taxes in there.
Okay, I just want to get that clear up here.
Yep.
But this is less than what the preliminary levy was that we
That's correct.
talked about in September, so that should be, that will be reflected. It'll be somewhat less than what's in the truth and taxation statements that everyone got in the mail.
That's correct.
Because September it was like 10, right? And we went down to 7 here.
That's correct.
So those statements will come down.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I just want to comment that, I feel for the property owners. I'm a property owner, several properties myself, and we do have relatively high property taxes, and it's a dilemma for our town, but yet we have this aging infrastructure. We've got to try and maintain our services, do things to help create jobs and expand our tax base. And sure, we could probably save money if we didn't have an economic development authority or community development director, but in the long run, these are things that I believe we need to do to invest in our future. And I guess I think we're getting a lot done in this budget for a 7% increase in the levy, and I'm happy that we're able to do what we're doing in this budget. So I will support the motion that's on the floor.
Okay, any other discussion? Roll call, please.
Teagues,
Aye.
Philman,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Dobson,
Yes.
Schontz,
Aye.
Landite,
All right.
Mayor Corman.
Aye.
The next item is the approval of the budget itself, which of course, it can be amended next year as well. And that's this item, Mayor.
Make the motion to approve resolution 2022-104 to approve the 2023 budget.
I'll second that.
I have a first and second. Do we have any further discussion for that? Roll call, please.
Landay,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
Dobson,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Whitman,
Yes.
Teagues,
Aye.
Mayor Corman.
Aye.
The last item is just the fee schedule for 2023. The only changes are the changes that I indicated to the water, sewer, and storm sewer fees that are increasing based on the schedule we adopted a few years ago. Every other fee is staying the same.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2022-105.
I'll second it.
We have a first and second. Do we have any other discussion on this one? Roll call, please.
Whitman,
Yes.
Jones,
Aye.
Teagues,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Dobson,
Yes.
Landay,
Aye.
Mayor Corman.
Aye. So at this time, is there anybody in the audience that would like to talk about something that is not on the agenda? Okay. All right, Dave.
Oh, we're at that point.
Don't forget the,
I will make a motion to approve the November 28th council minutes, approve municipal accounts payable and payroll without breakthrough beverage. Approve the approved municipal accounts payable and payroll. Approve the Tracy Relief Association minutes. Approve the November 7th Planning Commission minutes. Approve the November 9th, 2022 Park Board minutes. Approve Resolution 20-22 or 2022-110 accepting the donations, and Resolution 2022-111 for the charter franchise extension that we lovingly get to do every year.
Second that.
So I have a question about that. So since we play this game of charter every year, do they actually pay their
Yeah, they
fee that
do.
they're supposed to?
They pay what they're supposed to. We actually think we can clean this up. I had a communication with their person earlier this year, and we think we can actually get a long-term deal with them. It's just not something we were able to get accomplished in 2022, but I intend to get it done next year, and then we won't have to keep doing this.
what would be a long term?
Like 10 years.
And the other ones are like Excel, and the other ones, how long are they?
Excel, we just did Excel, and
How long is that one?
that one's 10 years. We've got one with all the different cable operators in town. And Vast and Spectrum are the only ones that are actually, Vast is something else now, Blue Peak or whatever. And then we have one with Minnesota Energy for gas, and I think that one is up in a couple of years, and then we'll want to extend that one at that point.
Okay. Anybody else have any questions on that? Roll call, please.
Jones,
Aye.
Landay,
Aye.
Teagues,
Aye.
Dobson,
Aye.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Whitman,
Yes.
Mayor Corman.
Aye. Anybody?
I'll make a motion.
Oh.
I'll make a motion to approve accounts payable for breakthrough beverage.
All right.
Do we have a second?
I'll say.
First and second, any discussion on that? Roll call, please.
Whitman,
Yes.
Dobson,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Jones,
Aye.
Landay,
Aye.
Mayor Corman.
Aye. Now, does anybody have anything for Mayor Council Communication tonight?
I guess I just want to comment, the city workers that worked through the miserable Vikings game, fixing that water main that broke. They did an excellent job and spent most of their day. I know they were still going at dark, so they did an excellent job, and thank you for your work done.
George, could you just repeat for the record, that was at what intersection? It was over by Jerry's house, kind of?
Seventh and Rollins.
7th and Rollins.
7th and Roland there.
I'm guessing that people are going to want to just briefly get a quick update on that. I appreciate you saying that, George. I agree. I mean, I think that they, you know, Vikings game notwithstanding, they still have to be out there. That is in a new section of the street that we haven't accepted yet. It's kind of at a connection between an old section and a new section. We don't know exactly what happened yet. We're kind of working with our engineer to try to figure this out. I know that we've already had conversations with R&G Construction, who has committed to pay for any cost for repairing it. What we've got to do is figure out exactly what our risk on other portions of it. You know, I mean, we're going to have an issue with something else that we don't know about. I don't know the answer to that question yet. It's only been a day and a half, so I'd ask for some patience on this one, because I think this is the kind of thing you want to be really careful with. We want to make sure we have all the right information first. Shane has already done a report on it, and I got a little bit of information from Kyle at ISG as well. I talked to him earlier. He asked if he could be, if we wanted him here tonight, and I said, well, I don't know, we have much to say yet at this point. But I know that folks in town, I mean, I even saw it on some of the social media, of course, know that it's in the new section of the street, and they're wondering what the heck is going on, right? And I think that's a fair question, and that's the question we're trying to answer. I just don't have an answer for you yet, and I ask for a little bit of patience on that, and we will get an answer. We're not happy about it, and we've just got to figure out how we move forward.
I think it's wise for now not to jump to any conclusions. Wait till we get the facts.
Yeah, that's what we're just trying to figure out, you know. I mean, we want to gather all the right information first.
Yep.
It's always better to bring you solutions along with the problem at the same time, but I mean, I feel the pain. I know that Shane's guys were out there, and I know that they're frustrated. Anytime you're frustrated having to do a water main break, it never happens in a good time anyway, you know. I mean, but just the fact that it was in a section of street you wouldn't normally expect it, I know that adds to the frustration level at the same time. And I know that, you know, for some of you who might even live close to that particular intersection, you know, that's particularly frustrating. So, you know, we take it very seriously. We weren't happy about it. It was the first thing that Shane and I talked about this morning, and of course Shane and I were talking about it yesterday while it was happening at the same time. So,
about how many, you know, roughly how many customers were without water?
it's a good question. I'll have Shane answer that. I don't know.
So basically, we got by which is shutting off. It'd be the 300 block of 7th. There may have been a house or two that got service off of 7th that were out, like on Harvey or Roland. I know there's one for sure on Roland that was out. It was connected right by our repair. So for the most part, it's roughly about 10 to 12 houses that was off. So it wasn't a huge area. Luckily, we have valves that work in that portion, being it's newer. So that was a benefit to us. So.
I was worried it was more.
Yeah, it's actually that line is main arterial to the water tower from the water plant. It's a 12-inch. And the water main was put in 1990, but it's all PVC C900, basically the same spec that they have now. So part of the plan was to leave that portion in. So basically they connected onto it during the project at different intervals, you know, to accomplish what they needed to do. So, but it was just a fitting; it wasn't actually the main that failed. So. Any other questions?
Thanks to you guys for the work.
Yep. I'll pass on the message. Thanks.
Anybody else have anything? Do you have something you want to add, Eric, for your report?
Oh, for my report?
Yeah.
I guess I would just say this. What I would like to do, Jan Arvisu and I had a meeting this afternoon, and I think we've got more meetings yet to go, but, one of the things that we have done in the past is, when there's a new council with new people in it, we kind of go over our goals and, what we might want to accomplish in the next couple of years and kind of do a little bit of strategic planning for, okay, well, how have we done? What have we accomplished? What do we need to accomplish in the next couple of years? And that helps us kind of drive the budget process too at the same time, and what kind of resources do we have for it? And so I'd like to do that again, with the new council. A lot of you were still around from before, but I think it makes sense. Anytime you add people, and Tom's relatively new too, so didn't get an opportunity to comment on that other stuff. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking that I'd like to try to do in the first quarter, moving up. We could talk about that later if you want to do a special meeting on that, or if we just do something in a regular council meeting. I don't know, but I think it makes sense to do something like that. Unless anybody has an objection to it, I'd like to start kind of planning for that.
I think that'd be a really, really good idea, and I'd like to see it in January, personally, and as a separate meeting. Maybe
Separate
even-
from the regular council meeting?
Yeah. And maybe just kind of an informal thing with coffee and rolls on Saturday morning in the library lower level or here, or just, it'd be open to the public too, but I just mean, just have kind of an informal ability to just kind of talk about goals.
Okay, I'll work on some dates. We can talk about it at the next council meeting when we have the new council seated, and then we can select kind of a time and a place. And
That's on the 9th.
is that
That'll be on the 9th.
the next meeting? Is it the 9th? Is that
Yep.
be the second Monday?
Yep, be the 9th then. Okay.
And
Yeah.
Mayor, I know we're not really under the communications part, but I'd just like to thank Ron for his 2 years on the council, dealing with some, difficult issues at different times. So appreciate that, Ron.
Yeah, thank you.
Ron.
We'd like to do, Diane and I were talking about it as well. We usually do a certificate of appreciation. I'd like to do that at the next meeting too. We'll swear in the new council member, and then also I think we should celebrate, Ron at the same time too, if you're available to come to the first meeting in January. I think that's important to recognize people, when they're what?
When you're done, I was going to add something to that, to Ron.
I'm afraid of what you're going to say.
We're still on TV.
Is he gonna have to drive himself?
Never mind then.
I'll deal with you later.
Now, boys.
That's all I have, Mayor.
Okay,
You ready for new business?
go on to new business.
Okay, the first item is the LELS union contract. This is for the 2 police officers. It is basically the same terms as the previous one that we approved for the remainder of the employees. And so it's basically the same. It took us a little bit longer to get there, and we weren't quite ready yet, but we're in the same place.
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution 2022-106, the LELS union contract.
I'll second that.
First and second, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Teagues,
Aye.
Landay,
Aye.
Hilton,
Yes.
Jones,
Aye.
Dobson,
Yes.
Schmidt,
Yes.
Mayor Corman.
Aye.
The next two, do you want to do the next 2 items, Shane?
Yeah.
I thought maybe you were.
I wasn't sure if you want me to stick around for those or not, so.
Okay. Well, you might as well at this point.
Yeah.
Shane's supposed to be at fire training, but
He'd rather be with us.
this will take about 5 minutes.
Jones first. Ponds?
First one's a pond.
Pond. So this would be the second pay app. It's a fairly large pay app. I don't have the amount with me, but
300 some thousand.
I thought this was a 1.1.
Oh, this is that
I
one.
think the last one was 300. I was looking for it before I got that, but
Sure. In the back of it.
there we go. So the total for this application is $1,292,672.37. Basically, this is most of the work. I think the contract is about 1.9. We already paid him 300. I think it's 303,000 if I recall. For the last pay out for last month. Basically, they're down to moving a little bit of dirt and seeding. So they're getting real close to wrapping that up. Weather permitting on the seeding, if they don't get it accomplished this year, they'll do it in the spring. So it just depends on, if we get a lot of snow, it's gonna be hard for them to put seed down, so.
Were they working today?
I didn't make it out there today.
Okay.
I was documenting things from yesterday, so.
I
They were there last week, I know, late Friday and Thursday, so.
I was out there a couple times and watched them working, and I thought they were doing an excellent job. And after seeing some of their finished product, a little disappointed that we can't hay it. Because they did a nice job leveling the ground and laying it out there. It looked real good to me.
And hopefully maybe that haying provision, hopefully that can change down the road, I would hope. But it does remind me again, this $1.9 million expense, this came up as a big surprise a couple years ago. And, it's a requirement from the state that's what has to be done. But it is just another example of sometimes we're not always in complete control of the costs that are involved in city government.
Do you have a motion for that?
I would make the motion to approve that resolution on the pond decommissioning, resolution 2022-107.
I'll second it.
Do we have any discussion on that?
Is there retainage on this one then too?
There is retainage,
Yes.
yeah, I don't know what,
That's like
we haven't released any retainage yet at this point.
387.
Yeah, it's 10% of the project,
Roll call, please.
Landay.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Dobson.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Truman.
Yes.
Teigs.
Aye.
Mayor Corman.
Aye.
I found this one.
Okay.
The next, the change order for the AWAS is the next one.
All right, so this is it's actually the part of the final pay app, but we have a change order just for some quantity differences with class 5. There's some tile provisions too that were actually not needed, so they didn't. The gravel's a little bit more than $664, but there's some tiles that was omitted because they never ran into any tile or they had to do any repairs there. So it's a $664 increase, basically for class 5 for the road and the gravel area around the actual site. Ended up being a little bit more. And then the total, so there's been 2 previous change orders. One was for extra time due to delays, and the other one was a deduct because of the freezing rain sensor they took out. So basically the total project with the change orders, it's been reduced by $5,065 total from the original contract. So overall we're ahead.
This is the airport, right?
Yep, for the weather observation system.
We have funds to get that money out of, or does that come out of the city?
This is a MnDOT grant, so it's 75-25 We pay 25% of this project. The state pays 75%, and the actual weather system, it's roughly $150,000 if I recall, of value, and the state's paying 100% of that portion. So basically, we prepped the site, made the road, and got the service, electric service in there, and then they took care of the rest. That's kind of what it boils down to.
Is there an airport fund though that we can get that money out of, like for use of the airport? People that fly in or fly out or?
Yeah, these expenses related to the airport come out of the airport fund, and that includes all of the fees that people pay, or not fees, there really isn't fees other than the hangar fees. The hangar fees, airport rent for the land, for the ag rent, all the fuel that's sold and stuff like that. And all that money essentially is used to pay for our portions of these costs.
So taxpayers really aren't digging out of their pocket for much of it?
In this case, no. The budget you just passed earlier takes some money out of the general fund and puts it into the airport. Because we kind of run at an operating loss at the airport every year. In the past, the airport used to be part of the general fund, not the capital part of it, but the operating part of it is part of the general fund. And so the costs were buried in there. We never saw those. A couple of years ago, we changed that, separated it out, and now we can see. Now that we have some history on it, we can see what's actually happening. We lose about $40,000 a year on the airport, and that money but that's on everything. That's not just on this project. So what's paying for our match on this is a combination of fees at the airport and some contribution from the taxpayers.
So Shane, is the data from this new weather system, is that posted on the website then?
It's on if you go to like the National Weather Service site, they actually use our data from that for their site. Yep.
So people can check that to see what the wind speed is,
which
and so forth.
It hasn't worked since Friday night because of the power outage, but it should be working now because we had to reset some things this afternoon. So.
Had everything going on this weekend.
Yeah,
it's got the temp and the precip and all of those things.
Yep.
We had a motion on that yet?
Not yet. I don't think so.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution 2022-108 for the change order on the AWAS project.
I'll second that.
First and second, any discussion? Roll call, please.
Landeck.
Aye.
Jones.
Aye.
Dobson.
Aye.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Rubin.
Yes.
Teets.
Aye.
Mayor Corman.
This last item, council, is
Thanks, Jane.
you have a policy that says if anything's over $5,000 that we're supposed to get 2 quotes. This is to allow us to purchase this fire equipment without that requirement. There's a reason for it, and basically what it boils down to is that Dale Johnson came in with a check from the Fire Relief Association for some equipment. What this equipment costs. So essentially the Fire Relief Association, through donations, is purchasing equipment for the fire department because the city owns it, and ultimately we need to make the purchase. But in reality, we're kind of a middleman, I guess you could say, in this. And since the Fire Relief Association is really purchasing it, this is basically just to cover ourselves and make sure we follow our purchasing policy, is what it amounts to.
All you.
On the resolution?
Yep.
Yes.
Okay, I'll make a motion on resolution 2022-109, source for fire equipment.
First and second, any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Teagues.
Aye.
Rubin.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Yes.
Dobson.
Yeah.
Jones.
Aye.
Landeck.
Aye.
Mayor Corman.
Aye.
That's all we have, Mayor.
So before we close, I would like to, just on behalf of the city council, speaking for all of you, like to wish everybody in TV land happy holidays, and all of you. And once again, thank Ron for your service. With that, we have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
One right out the door.
I do expect a suit and tie, Ron.